and start the live stream. Luckily, the conference is going. Okay. So, we'll now read it in the English. Leviticus chapter 9. Just realized the live stream wasn't going. So here in Leviticus, even starting back to Exodus, when Moses was getting the instructions in the law twice from off the mount, it proceeded, or it followed with a lot of instructions on the rearing of the tabernacle, the consecrating of the tabernacle, as well as the consecration of the priests, as far as for their attire and as well as the anointing. And then once the anointing happens, then you have to go through the actual atonement and sacrifices for them to begin doing their service in the tabernacle. And this is what we're reading here, going into Aaron and his sons, and now they're about to start off the priesthood, right? So we're at a point now where the consecration and the garments and the sprinkling of blood have been transpiring with the anointing of Aaron and his sons. And now we're going to continue on here with Aaron and his sons now beginning to start doing the sacrifices, not only for them, but for the people. So this is Leviticus 9:1. It says,
yeah.
Kun.
Is the live stream working on your end?
It's up now. I see one viewer on there.
Yeah, I still can't get on.
Did you get a link?
Yes, and it won't let me on with the link.
What's the last 4 letters of your URL in the stream? It should be in FR. I think what is that? IO FR10, something like that. That's to confirm that you have the right link.
Okay.
But it is currently running on my end, and I do have a viewer that's logged on. So I know earlier I wasn't streaming. It didn't go out, but it just went out within the last 2 minutes.
Okay. I'm gonna hang up. I'm gonna try again because I'm still not getting anything.
Okay, I was just refresh, and if Kahanabiya is on the teleconference line on the live stream, just Baba Kushaf, you can just shoot Akwath Vicky the link again just to make sure.
Thank you.
I end the bar. All right. So we'll continue. We'll pick up on the first verse of Leviticus, the 9th chapter. It says, "And it came to pass on the 8th day that Moses or Marshal called Aaron or Aharon and his sons and the elders of Israel, and said unto Aaron, Take thee a young calf for a sin offering, and a ram for a burnt offering without blemish, and offer them before the Lord. And unto the children of Israel thou shalt speak, saying, Take you a kid of the goats for a sin offering, and a calf and a lamb, both of the first year without blemish, for a burnt offering," right? So now the priests are beginning to offer up their sin offerings and burnt offerings for themselves, and then having Israel also go and bring forth a sin offering and a burnt offering for the congregation. We read about something similar to this every year around the time of Day of Atonement, when we read Leviticus, the 16th chapter, that there were offerings made to make an atonement for the priests, and then there was also an offerings made to make an atonement for the people, right? So the priest had to make sure that he himself had cleanse himself from sin or iniquity by going through making the offering, and then as well doing it for the congregation, right? You can write down Hebrews, the 5th chapter. Hebrews chapter 5. Verses 1 to 3. Actually, I'm going to go to 4. So Hebrews chapter 5, verses 1 to 4, it says, "For every high priest taken from among men is ordained for men in things pertaining to Yahweh, that he may offer both gifts and sacrifices for sins. Who can have compassion on the ignorant and on them that are out of the way? For that he himself also is compassed with infirmity," right? So this is the same thing that we're reading now as far as for the high priest ordained by the Most High was supposed to go and offer up the sacrifices and offerings. It's calling here gifts and sacrifices, but it's the same thing, just using different words, right? Hebrews 5, 1 to 4, right? So here the priest was supposed to do it for himself, then also go and have compassion on those who are ignorant, who fell victim to sin, but he himself was without blemish. That's what it's saying. Who can have compassion on the ignorant and on them that are out of the way? For that he himself also is compassed with infirmity. Verse 3, "And by reason hereof, he ought, as for the people, so also for himself to offer for sins," right? So when you read Hebrews, it kind of gives a back history on what the law, what the Most High imputed in the law for Israel and the priest to do as it pertains to making an atonement for sins, right? But as you read further on, Christ was much different from what we read in the Levitical priesthood, because he himself was not caught up in sin. So he did not have to offer up a sin offering for himself. He gave himself as a sin or sacrifice for the people because of their sins. All right. It says in verse 4, "And no man taketh this honor unto himself," meaning no one would go and choose to say, I want to do this because I think it's right. No, it says, "But he that is called of the Most High power," right? Meaning the Most High made a determination as to how the priesthood and the ordering of the priesthood would go. It says, "As was Aaron," or Aharon in the Hebrew. So this came from the Most High, and the Most High made the choice to select a certain man and his lineage and his sons to bear that responsibility of being the priest, and then to offer up the sacrifices, not only for themselves, but as well as for the people. All right. So that's Hebrews 5, 1 to 4. And I'm going to just link this with 1 Timothy 4. And 13 to 16. 1 Timothy chapter 4, verses 13 to 16. So this was the letter that Paul gave to Timothy as he was establishing the church, right? It says, "Till I come, give attendance to reading, to exhortation, to doctrine. Neglect not the gift that is in thee, which was given thee by prophecy with the laying on of hands of the presbytery," right? So Timothy had a responsibility that was imposed upon him that he now is being exhorted by Paul to continue in, right? For a reason. It says, meditate upon these things, give thyself wholly to them, that thy profiting may appear to all. So when Timothy continues in the instruction that was given to him, right, through a spiritual means of the laying on of hands by the congregation of church, by the clergy, once he continued it, he would be an example for the rest of the body or the rest of the congregation. That's why it says that thy profiting may appear to all, right? It says, take heed unto thyself and unto the doctrine, continue in them. For in doing this, thou shalt both save thyself and them that hear thee, right? So as we parallel this to what we're reading now in Leviticus with Aaron and his sons, they have to follow the same instruction. They have to take heed to the doctrine. They have to meditate in, and then what will come of that as they continue in it, it will be a blessing to all. The rest of the congregation will then bear witness to how beautiful and good it is to continue in the works of the Most High and the word of the Most High, so that blessings can come to you. If not, then cursings could come upon you, as we'll see later on, right? So that was 1 Timothy 4:13 to 16, right? And the reason why I read this, because the parallel is we don't have the Levitical priesthood established anymore, because the structure and the order can't be done. We don't have the church, and we don't have the full record to understand who came from Aaron's lineage. So we can't have that, but we do have a royal priesthood now, where by all those brothers, those men who are teaching the word of the Most High, now fall under somewhat this guideline, but just in a different manner, right? We don't go into the temple and do the same things like the Levitical priest did, but we now have other responsibilities somewhat similar, that if we follow in the same things, we will receive the same blessings. Y'all Kanan.
Yeah, plus we don't have the temple. Right?
Exactly. That's why I said we don't have the temple, and we don't have the record to distinguish of who is of Aaron's lineage and who is of this man's sons, and so forth and so on, right? So now let's go back to Leviticus 9. Now we have verse 4. It says, also a bullock and a ram for peace offerings to sacrifice before the Lord, and a meat offering mingled with oil, for today the Lord will appear unto you, right? So this offerings, the Most High was not only just having Moses instruct Aaron and his sons now to go about implementing what was already documented when the Most High gave Moses the law coming off the mount. And Moses then went to the people, to the elders, and then told them what needed to be done. Now it's being implemented, right? So now upon this implementation, now it's being actually done. The Most High says, when you do these sacrifices, I'm going to appear. I'm going to come down there and present himself to Israel there at the tabernacle, right? So this is going to be a monumental thing as it pertains to Israel seeing the priesthood now be established and the Most High accepting of it, right? Verse 5, and they brought that which Moses commanded before the tabernacle of the congregation. So everything that we just read in the first 4 verses, now they went out and did it. And all the congregation drew near and stood before the Lord. So now as the priest is getting all the sacrifices, the body of the congregation, the rest of the tribes, they're all now coming towards this tabernacle, right? To observe, right? And to worship before the Lord. It says, and Moses, verse 6, said, this is the thing which the Lord commanded that ye should do, and the glory of the Lord shall appear unto you. So now he's reaffirming that if we continue and we do what the Most High asks, he will appear unto you. Same thing, if we do what the Most High asked of us, he will be there and do for us as well, right? He will come there and help us in time of need. He will provide the things that we need to receive based on necessity, and not just wants and desires, but offer things that's necessary for us to have. The Most High will be there for us, appear there for us, if we do the things that are required by him for us to do. Verse 7. And Moses said unto Aaron, go unto the altar and offer thy sin offering and thy burnt offering, and make an atonement for thyself and for the people, and offer the offering of the people, and make an atonement for them as Yahweh commanded. Right? So again, as you read sometimes in scripture, it's step by step so that things don't get out of place or you forget what things the Lord wants you to do. So Moses was there with his brother and his sons, his nephews, in order to make sure that everything that the Most High wanted was done according to instruction, right? So now the offering or the atonement for Aaron and his sons, as well as for the people, is about to be done. Verse 8, Aaron therefore went unto the altar and slew the calf of the sin offering, which was for himself. Verse 9, and the sons of Aaron brought the blood unto him, and he dipped his finger in the blood and put it upon the horns of the altar and poured out the blood at the bottom of the altar. Right? So this is the order of the sacrifice on how you're supposed to sacrifice before the Most High at the altar. Kill the calf, the blood's supposed to be caught in the basin, and then you take the blood and then you put it upon the altar, and then you waste it out at the bottom of the altar. So everything is being done according to commandment or statute. Verse 9. Did I read 9? Come. Verse 9 again. And the sons of Aaron brought the blood unto him, and he dipped his finger in the blood and put it upon the horns of the altar and poured out the blood at the bottom of the altar. But the fat and the kidneys and the caul above the liver of the sin offering he burnt upon the altar as the Lord commanded Moses. So what was in the law, when you read it in Exodus, is now what they're doing. The liver, the caul, right? The kidneys, right? Those were supposed to be burned, right? Now in the law, as Kahan Yahweh Kanan went through prior to, there were certain things that could not be eaten, had to be burnt, certain things that was totally whole burnt, and certain things that was burned or sacrificed, but then also eaten by the priests, right? So certain things was in detail commanded to Aaron and his sons on how they were supposed to handle the different offerings. And we'll see that be a point of contention later on in the next chapter as it pertains to that right on which parts of sacrifices could be eaten and not eaten according to law, right? So I'm going to read verse 10 again. But the fat and the kidneys and the caul above the liver, or the membrane above the liver of the sin offering, he burnt upon the altar as Yahweh commanded. And the flesh and the hide he burnt with fire without the camp. So the sin offering had to be done in this manner, right? So the innards and these things that we read in verse 9 was burnt upon the altar. Then the hide and the flesh was burnt without the camp, right? Verse 12, and he slew the burnt offering, and Aaron's sons presented unto him the blood which he sprinkled round about upon the altar. So we did the sin offering, now we're doing the burnt offering, right? And they presented the burnt offering unto him with the pieces thereof and the head, and he burnt them upon the altar. And he did wash the inwards and the legs and burnt them upon the burnt offering on the altar, right? So these are things that we've already read in previous chapters in Leviticus, as well as what we read several months ago in Exodus, right? Somewhere around the 29th and 30th chapters go into the consecration of the priests, as well as the offerings that's supposed to be made by the priests, right? I think it's somewhere Exodus 29 and 30, around that area. Verse 15, it says, and he brought the people's offering and took the goat, which was the sin offering for the people, and slew it and offered it for sin as the first. So the same thing that was done for Aaron's sons, Aaron and his sons for the sin offering, now is being done for the people, right? Same thing we read when we do the Day of Atonement. First the priest, then the congregation. It says, and he brought the burnt offering and offered it according to the manner, or the order, right? Or the ordinance that was provided in the law by the Most High. And he brought the meat offering and took a handful thereof and burnt it upon the altar beside the burnt sacrifice of the morning, right? Because in the law you read there's a sacrifice, a morning and an evening offering, right? So this was being done in conjunction with that as it pertains to the sanctity of the priesthood, right? Because now once this commences, they engage. They're now continuing this on. The order of the priesthood supposed to have been forever, right? But we know that ended with our captivities, right? Every time we went into captivity, that was a wrap for that. That was on pause, right? Only if they'd allowed us to continue in doing some of the offerings while we're in captivity. But you know, we had Ezra go back during the end of the Babylonian captivity into the Assyrian captivity. I mean, into the Persians and the Medes captivity. But that always wasn't the case. But this was supposed to be continually done with Israel.
And also, when they did the second sacrifice, they put the meat on top of what was already there.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of clean off the altar and move what was there. So on top of it, they put the meat that they were doing the second sacrifice on top of it and burn it.
Right.
All the way.
Gone. All right, so everybody heard that. If you were on the teleconference, he mentioned that the offering that was done for the people was put on the top of the altar with whatever was already being offered from what the priest was offering. Right? It wasn't stopped, cleaned, and then commenced again. It was all done in succession. Yahweh Kanan.
Yes, I was going to read one verse. Although we're in captivity and all the other different captivities that the temple destroyed and so on and so forth, right? This is what the Most High said. Ezekiel chapter 11, verse 16. It says, Ezekiel 11:16. It says, therefore, say, thus said the Lord God, although I have cast them far off among the heathen, and although I have scattered them among the countries, yet will I be to them as a little sanctuary in the countries where they shall come.
Mm-hmm. Which what we are right now, right? Where we are scattered, Moses said he's still going to be a sanctuary or a safe haven for us, even in our captivity. And that's what we have right now. Right? When we come, whether we physically come, whether we log on a live stream, whether we dial in on a teleconference line, where you text message on your phone, this is the safe haven that we have, that we can escape from the madness of the world, or the traditions of men, and then come into the Most High's chambers, right? So back in Leviticus 9, verse 18, it says, he slew also the bullock and the ram for a sacrifice of peace offerings, which was for the people. And Aaron's sons presented unto him the blood, and he sprinkled upon the altar round about. And the fat of the bullock, of the ram, the rump, and that which covereth the inwards, and the kidneys, and the caul above the liver. And they put the fat upon the breast, and he burnt the fat upon the altar. Right? So again, the peace offerings you read about in Leviticus, the 3rd chapter, as was done a couple months ago, as well as the rest of the offerings, and they are now all being put on the burnt altar, on the offering, the burnt altar to be offered up as a sacrifice before the Most High. Right? This is all done same way it was done for the priest. Now it's being done for the congregation, and this is now everyone's coming to now join with the priest to be there when the Most High appears to receive of his offering. Right? Most High didn't always physically come for the offerings, but it was now us tying everything in together. Seeing the Most High present, seeing the priest doing their service, providing us our own sacrifice, and the Lord being accepted of it was a great was a great thing, right? It created a good bond between us and the Lord and the priest. Verse 21, it says, and the breasts and the right shoulder Aaron waved for a wave offering before the Lord as Moses commanded, right? So you even have the wave offering. You read about the wave offering starting all the way back in Exodus 29th chapter, right? Like I said, mentioned earlier, subsequently, Exodus the 29th chapter and Exodus the 30th chapter are the beginnings of those instructions of what we're reading them do, right? The Most High mentioned this back then. They weren't doing it. They were just receiving the instruction. Moses was just receiving the instruction. And now he had to go to the elders and tell them, now implement it. Now go and do it. Get your sons, get the sacrifice, get the offerings, and now go and do it. And that's what they have done now. But this started back in Exodus 29th chapter based on what we're reading now. It says, and Aaron lifted up his hand toward the people, right, and blessed them, and came down from the offering of the sin offering and the burnt offering and peace offerings, right? So the wave offering was done, and he did that over the people, continuing dealing with the sin offerings and the rest of the burnt offerings and the peace offerings, right? And then it was done, right? Then it says in verse 23, and Moses and Aaron went into the tabernacle of the congregation. So he went into the tent and came out and blessed the people, and the glory of the Lord appeared unto all the people. So what happened when Aaron and Moses went in and came back out, and the Most High appears? It doesn't tell you right here what things they did, change their clothes or what have you, but the Most High appeared at that moment, right? Remember, all the offerings and things was being done, and here now, all of a sudden, the Most High told him was going to appear, gather all the people before me. Now, we read back in Exodus, when the Most High first appeared to Israel, they just didn't come, right? Right? You just didn't just half-nearly just come to the Most High. You know, in the law, it says that they have to be sanctified before they come. They have to be cleansed. So the first time when the Most High told Moses to have the people come before the mount, he says, 3 days they got to be sanctified. 3 days, make sure the men don't come near their women so that they don't be unclean by reason of sex or what have you, right? They now have to make sure that they come clean. We'll read next chapter about that specific thing that the Most High cares about, separating the clean from the unclean, the profane from the holy. So when they came and appeared, they just didn't just come unclean. No, they had to go and make sure they applied that statute as well. All right. Same thing we do when we come before the Most High on the Sabbath day, right? We make sure we refrain from dealing with our wives. This is why it doesn't make sense to me for those brothers in those camps that said you can have sex on the Sabbath day, where you see in the scriptures, when you read in Exodus, the Most High says, no, stay away from your wives before you even come and appear before me, right? Of course, the men did the same thing here. They had to stay away from their wives. You know, babe, I'm about to go. Most High's about to come. I got to be clean. If not, if you was there unclean before the Lord back then, you know, right now the Most High is a power of mercy, but he makes his point known. He's a man of example in Israel, and especially in the beginnings of our building up of the nation, the Most High had to have things set down the right way. It was no partiality with it. It was like, listen, this is it. If you don't follow it, that's what's going to happen to you, right? And we'll see an example of that coming up. But I'm going to read this again in verse 22. And Aaron lifted up his hand toward the people and blessed them, and came down from offering of the sin offering and the burnt offering and peace offering. And Moses and Aaron went into the tabernacle of the congregation and came out and blessed the people. And the glory of the Lord appeared unto all the people. And, verse 24, there came a fire out before the Lord and consumed upon the altar the burnt offering and the fat, which when all the people saw, they shouted and fell on their faces, right? So now the altar already has its own fire, right? So the stuff is already there burning on the altar. Then the Most High comes, and the Most High brings his own fire down, woof, and burns up the altar. So now when the people see that, they're like, oh, yeah, and they bowed and fell on their faces and began worshiping the Most High, because now you see that the Most High is in tune with what the priests are doing and what we've offered. We're burning on fire, but he came down with a different fire and consumed the whole thing, right? So that was a sight to see. He didn't burn up the priest, it didn't burn up the tabernacle. It just went right on that altar and just burned up the offerings that was on the altar, right? So, you know, if you had a movie, cinema, and they showed the chariot and the tabernacle of the congregation is there, and then you got the altar, and they all standing there and bearing witness, and you seeing it, and then you see, boom, the fire comes down the stream right on that altar and take it out. It's like, man, the Most High is with us, right? He's accepting of our offerings. This is a beautiful day, right? And like we said, when we do good, when we do what the will of the Most High is, he'll be accepting of us. We're now the offerings. We're now the sacrifice. So if we do what the Lord requires for us as a sacrifice, he will be accepting of us.
And also, the Most High does it because he knew how he created Israel. He requires a sign.
Right.
Like it says in 1 Corinthians 1:22.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 1 Corinthians 1:22, it says the Jews require a sign. And the people, they were so happy just to see results. They want to see results. Oh, well, with all the exercise that the priests were doing for the Most High, if they doing for the Most High, they required to see a sign, and the Most High showed them that sign.
Right.
He was in the midst of it.
So that was Exodus 1:22.
Now in 1 Corinthians.
1 Corinthians, I mean 1:22. Right. And you can link that with 1 Peter's chapter 1, 7, and 8. Because the point to realize here is, back then, the Most High would appear to Israel a lot. The Most High would have the angels appear to Israel a lot. Now we don't have it where it's widely observed. And that casts doubt to a lot of our people as to the validity of the Most High being our power, that there is a power that exists, that we have these angels that watch over us. Where they at, right? That's what people say. Where they at? Okay, you guys are talking and reading about it. The Most High came and burnt. Call them down. Call them down now, right? You had Elijah, you know, have a standoff with his adversary at the time to come up with another God, right? They said, this is our God. And they had a standoff with their sacrifices, right? And the Most High came down and consumed the sacrifice that Elijah did, but, you know, the false God didn't do it. So we had a lot of times where the Lord would present himself and do right by us, save us, protect us, punish us, right? Had when the angel came down and held the sword, the curse that went over Israel. They saw this, right? So it wasn't that they didn't know where it was coming from. They knew it was coming from the Most High. It was an angel. But now we don't have that, right? So as it was that Israel sought a sign back then, when Yahushua came, he was like, you ain't going to get no sign like how you want it, right? You're not going to receive the same sign that you're accustomed to. Things is now going to be based on your faith, right? So 1 Peter 1:7 says that the trial of your faith, being much more precious than of gold that perisheth, though it be tried with fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Yahushua Mashiach. It says in verse 8, whom having not seen, ye love, right? So now it would be very difficult for a lot of people, and it has been very difficult for a lot of people to believe on the Christ that's written in the scriptures. Not the one that's foretold about, right? The one that's written in the scriptures. We haven't physically seen Yahushua. Spiritually we have, right? Spiritually we can see eye to eye with him, maybe a little bit darkly, you know, it's a little tint there, but we see him there, where others clearly are looking in another direction, right? But based on faith, we follow and act upon the instruction and commandments that's been laid down to us by Christ. It says, though now ye see him not, yet believing, ye rejoice with joy unspeakable and full of glory. Right? So this is where we have our hope, where it resides. It's in the belief in Yahushua. And as we continue in the things that we've been instructed to do, this is where we have our joy. Yahweh Kanan.
Yeah, that's going to read after Exodus 20, after verse 17.
Exodus 20 and 17?
No, 20 and 18. No, after the Most High gave the Ten Commandments, we read verse 18. And it says, and all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. And they said unto Moses, speak thou with us, and we will hear, but let not God speak with us, lest we die.
Right.
So they just stood back.
Right. So they had a fear of the Most High. Different times it was like, at one point they was questioning why he got to be the one to speak, and a few times the Most High had to come and show, this is why I deal with him. Who are you to question who I want to use, who I want to choose as a vessel that I interact with? And then it was like, all right, you got it. But on this occasion, the Most High came. He was accepting of the sacrifice that was brought, and everybody was a lot of shouting going on. You can imagine people like, oh my God, you see it on, and they fell down and worshiped at the sight of seeing the acceptance of the offerings from the priest for us. So it was a beautiful occasion. Right? So it was at Exodus 20, verses 19 and 20. So again, I'll just repeat that.
No, 18 and 19. Exodus 20, verse 18 and 19. 18
and 19. So I'll repeat it. That was 1 Corinthians 1 and 22, 1 Peter's 1, 7 to 8, and then Exodus chapter 20, verse 18 to 19. All right. So that was a quick 24 verses. I don't know if I should just keep going and just finish through, because the next one is short. So I'm gonna power through this while we have the time. See, there's that snow is going on out there. I'm gonna read now Leviticus the 10th chapter in the Hebrew, and then continue on with the English edification. So Leviticus chapter 10, verse 1. Which reads, Wayakwakwa Bunyam Aharon Nadab wa Abba Yawa Ayash Makathaf wa Wayathunwa Bahan Ash wa Yashim wa Alyaha Quatarath Wayakwa Rayabwa Lapanya Yahawa Ash Zara Ashra La'a Tazawa Atham, verse 2. Watha Tazar Ash Malapanya Yahawa Watha Ako Wawa Salak Awatham Waya Mathwa Lapanya Yahawa, verse 3. Waya Amar Masha Al Aharan Hawa'a Ashara Dabar Yahawa La Amar Bakwarabya Aqua Dash wa Ayo Panya Ko Ha'ain Akabad Waya Dum Aharan. Verse 4. Waya Kura Masha O Maya Sha'o wa O Allah Tazapan Bunyam Aiz Ya Allah Dad, Aharon, Waya Amar, Oham, Korabwa, Shawa, Ath, Akyakam, Ma'ath Panya, Akwadash, O Maka, Wataza, Lamaka Na. Verse 5. Waya Kwa Rabwa, Waya Sha'am, Baka Thunthum, O Maka Wataza, Lamakana, Ashura, Dabar, Marsha. Verse 6. Waya Amar, Marsha, O Aharon, Wala'a, Salat, Wala'a, Wala ala Izar, Wala'a Yathamar, Banyawa, Ra'ashakam, O Thapa Raiwa, Wabadam Yakam La'a, Thapa Rumwa, Wala'a Thama Salak Thamathwa, Wa'ayoko, Ha'ai Dar, Wa Yakwa Tazap, Wa'akikam Ko, Bayath, Yasha'ala, Yabakwa, Ath, Hasha Rapah, Asherah, Sharap, Yahweh. Verse 7. Wamapathak, Aho, Mawa'ai La'a, Thatazawa, Pun, Thamathwa, Kaya, Shaman, Mashakath, Yahweh, Al Yakam, Waya Aishwa, Kada Bar, Mashah. Verse 8. Waya da Bar, Yahweh O, Aharon, La'amar. Verse 9. Yayan, Washakar, Oth, Salat. Washakar O, Thashath, Athar, Wabanyaka, Athka, Waba Akam, O Aho, Ma'aid, Wala'a, Thamathwa, Kwath, Iwalam, Lada Rathyakam. Verse 10. Walaha Badyo, Bayan, Hakwadash, Waya, Salat, Waba Yan, Hako, Waba Yan, Hata Ma, Waba Yan, Hata Ha War. Verse 11. Walaha Warath, Salat, Ath, Bunyam, Yasha'ala, Ath Ko, Hakakim, Asherah, Dabar, Yahweh, Ol Yaham, Bayad, Mashah. Verse 12. Waya Dabar, Mashah, O Aharon, Wa'o, Ala Ai Zar, Wa'ayo, Aya Thamar, Banyawa, Hanawa Tharyam, Kakwa, Ath, Hama Nakam, Hana Wath, Rath, Ma'ashya, Yahweh, Wa'ako, Wal, Matazawath, Atazo, Hama Zabak, Ya, Kodashim, Hawa'a. Verse 13. 1 second. Verse 13. Wa'akotham, Athar, Ma Bama Kwawum, Kwadawash, Kaya, Kakka, Salat Kakka, Wakak, Banyaka, Hawa'a, Ma'ashya, Yahweh, Kayakan, Taza Yath, Salat Taza wa Yathya. Verse 14. Wa'ath, Chaza, Hathana, Wapa, Wa'ath, Shawak, Hathara, Wama, Kowa, Bama Kwabwam, Tahawar, Atha, Wana, Salak, Wabanyaka, Waba Nathyaka, Athka, Kaya, Kaka, Wakwak, Salak, Wakak, Banyaka, Nathanwa, Mazabakya, Shalamya, Banyam, Yasha'ala. Verse 15. Shawak, Thara, Salak, Hatha, Rawama, Hathara, Wama, Wakaza, Hathana, wapa ayo asha haka labium yabaya awa lahana yap kana wapa lapya salak lapanya Yahawa waha ya laka wala bunyaka athka lakak iwalam ka'ashira tazawa Yahawa. Verse 16. Wa'ath sha'ai yar haka ta'ath darash mashah waha na sharap wayakwa tazap ayo ala aiz like ala izar Eleazar, yeah. Ala izar wa ayo aya thamar bunyam aharan hana wara salak hana wa tharum wa la'amar. Verse 17. Mada why la'a akotham ath haka hakata ath bama kwum hakodash kya kodashim hawa'a wa'a tha nathan lakam lasha'ath ath I1 ha'idar lakar par al yaham lapanya Yahweh. Verse 18. Hun la'a ha'aba salak hawa ba'a ath damha o hakodash panyama aka wo tha'akowa atha bakwa dash ka'ashira tazawa yafya. Verse 19. Wayadabar aharan la'a salak o mashahan haya wum hakwara yabwa ath katatham wa ath I latham lapanya Yahweh wathakwa ra na afya kaoha wa aha salat wa akothaya kata ath haya wum haya yatab ba'ai yanya Yahweh. Last verse, verse 20. Waya shamai masha waya yatab ba'ai yanyawa. All right. So that was now chapter 10 in Leviticus. And now in the English. So it says in verse 10, it's like chapter 10, verse 1. And Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took either of them his censer and put fire therein and put incense thereon and offered strange fire before the Lord, which he commanded them not, right? So as it pertained to the offerings and the incense and things that was presented or burned on the altar, the Most High had strict instructions. And here comes Nadab and Abihu. They came and offered strange incense on the censer that they brought to go before the tabernacle. You can read about this in law in Exodus 30 and 9, right? Actually starting from 30 and 9, where it reads, ye shall offer no strange incense thereon, nor burnt sacrifices, nor meat offerings, neither shall you pour drink offerings thereupon, right? A matter of fact, I'm gonna start from 8, Salak. 7. Kun. Exodus 30 and 7, Salak. It says, and Aaron shall burn thereon sweet incense every morning when he dressed the lamps, and he shall burn incense upon it. And when Aaron lighted the lamps at even, he shall burn incense upon it, a perpetual incense before the Lord throughout your generations. And ye shall offer no strange incense thereon, nor burnt sacrifice, nor meat offerings, neither shall you pour drink offerings thereupon. Right? So with the offerings went an incense that had to be burned. The offerings were specific as to what was supposed to be done, as well as the incense. Nabihu Abihu and Nadab came with their incense, which was strange. It was not according to what the Most High wanted, right? So this is what we see now, a first contention with the priests in their priesthood. So what this shows you is that you can't deviate to your own personal feelings on what you think is better than what the Most High wants. And this is what they did, right? They went and did what was not commanded them to do in the temple pertaining to the offerings and incense. Quiet.
And it could be anything. It could be a deviation from what the Most High said that can cause whatever the Most High said to do is not accepted.
Right.
It could be the incense. It could be how the fire is set up. And based on the scripture you read, there's instances where they offer strange incense. And also in the case of the Dab in Abihu, it's also the fire was not the right setting.
Mm-hmm.
What they used to set the fire was not the right setting. You can see that in Numbers. Numbers chapter 3, verse 4.
Read that.
It could be a case where they wanted to, experiment to see, if they could get some kind of result. The same way the people reacted, power is tempting, and they are trying to see if they can get some result and try to experiment with their own sort of a fire, which the Most High did not approve of.
Mm-hmm.
So Numbers chapter 3, verse 4. And it says, and Nadab and Abihu died before the Lord when they offered strange fire before the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai, and they had no children. So the setting of the fire, because sometimes you set fire with wood, there's a specific kind of wood you got to use to set the fire. In that case, they take a regular, the regular thing they used to set their fire, but that fire was not accepted.
Right.
Along with the incense that they put on top of the fire. Make the whole thing not accepted.
Right. So that whole offering was now profane before the Most High. Right. Everything that was on it was profane before the Most High because one aspect of it was not according to the instruction. So now everything is it's not going to be accepted, and now there has to be a consequence for that, right? Because this is starting with the priest. Remember, the priest was supposed to set the example and the tone for the people. Even though the priests were not sinless, the Most High had the priests offer up sin offerings for themselves. So that would be an example to the congregation that, listen, if even he's offering up a sin offering for himself, we have to do the same thing. So now it would be a bad example to have the priests or the men deviate from what the Most High wanted it to be done, and then it would be accepted. That would put the commandment or the law, the Most High's law, partial. He's like, well, I can do what I want and I can do what I don't want. I can just get and put my own law into it, right? I can be now, you got this commandment, I can insert another little thing in there to change it up how I see fit, right? Which that's what man does. Man's law never ends. It's always an amendment, a changing of this or that, because they moods change.
And it comes the element of competition too. Well, let me see if I can do something better to make the Most High do something, different from what he did before.
Right.
And then all the glory will come to me, and people will accept me.
That's what usually happens with man's law. Like if you pay attention, each president that comes up wants to leave his own mark in history. They want to outdo the previous one that came before them. So whether this one wants to now implement a health plan, right? It's like, okay, cool. I'm going to institute a health plan that no one ever had before. I'm going to fix this. So he put the health plan. The next one comes in. Nah, that health plan don't work. I'm going to put a better health plan in place. Now, not only that, I'm going to make a new law that's going to allow for this to happen. It's like, okay, so it's another law. Does that get rid of that law? Yes, it's going to now disband that law, or we're going to amend that law. We're going to change that law, but it just never ends, right? Because like you just mentioned, each man wants to now outdo the other so that he can receive the notoriety and the fame or the glory from the people. In this case, it would be what we're talking about as if it was from the Most High. But the Most High says he'd rather you obey than to sacrifice, than to go out there and deviate and then come and ask for forgiveness later. Just do what I say and it'll be all well. Right? You read that in 1 Samuel, I think 15:22. Let me make sure. I think it's 1 Samuel 15:22, which is yeah.
About that, Ken. I got a link, if I may.
Let me just make sure I have the right verse here that I quoted. The one before. Yes. Yes, that is. First Samuel 15:22 and 23. (22 and 23), where it says, and Samuel said, have the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord. Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken to than the fat of rams. For rebellion, when you go against the word of the Most High, is as the sin of witchcraft, right? The sin of witchcraft means the consequences of witchcraft requires what? Death, right? So it says rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. So when you go against the Most High, you're asking for the judgment of death. It says, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. So when you're pig-headed, you're stiff-necked, hard-hearted, that means you're asking for the same fate. Because if you deal with idolatry, right, the Most High has laws in place for anyone who comes speaking of another God, they now have to be put to death. Same thing with a witch. We can't suffer a witch to live, is what the law states. So anyone who's rebellious against the commandments of the Most High, back then, this is what took place. They were supposed to be stoned and put to death. It says, because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he have also rejected thee from being king. So this was in place in lieu of Saul, right? When Saul was rebellious, he was stubborn, he feared the people more than fearing the Most High. This is what caused his downfall, right? So in the same context here, when these priests or these men, Nadab and Abihu, didn't want to obey the commandment, they became rebellious, and it was almost like out of worship, because if you don't listen to the Most High, then you're listening to some other power, whether it be a man or another deity. You now have committed idolatry, right? Kahan Nabiyah. 1 Samuel 15:23, 22, 23. Kahan Nabiyah, you still there?
22, 23.
Okay. Guess he dropped off. All right, so we'll continue.
Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Deuteronomy 4, 1 and 2.
Deuteronomy chapter 4, verses 1 and 2.
Yeah. Proverbs 35 and 6. You can write them down. Proverbs 35 and 6. And Revelation 22, 18 and 19. They all pretty much say the same thing, so not add or remove in the word.
Okay. So again, that's Deuteronomy chapter 4, verses 1 to 2. Proverbs chapter 35 and 6. Revelations chapter 22, verses 18 and 19. Don't add unto nor take away. Revelations 22, 18 and 19. Deuteronomy 4, 1 to 2. I'll just read the first one. So it says in Deuteronomy 4, 1 and 2, it says, now therefore hearken or listen, O Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments, which I teach you, for to do them, that you may live and go in and possess the land which Yahweh power of your fathers giveth you. It says, ye shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall ye diminish aught from it, that ye may keep the commandments of the Lord your power, which I command you. Right? So don't add unto it, nor take away or diminish any of the commandment or aspects of the commandment that the Lord has provided. So now back to Leviticus 10 and 1 again. It says, and Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took either of them his censer and put fire therein and put incense thereon and offered strange fire before the Lord, which he commanded them not. And there went out fire from the Lord and devoured them, and they died before Yahweh. Right? So the same way as in the last chapter, when we had the offerings or the sacrifice, the sin offerings there on the burnt on the altar, the Most High made Nadab and Abihu a sin offering themselves because they sinned before the Lord, and now they was burned up right then and there. Right? So they became a living sin offering. Before it was we would give a cattle or a herd from the flock and offer it before the Most High as a sin offering. But in this context, Nadab and Abihu became the sin offering, right? Because they sinned before the Lord in front of the congregation, right? So the Lord made an example out of them, right? So the fire came down before and the fire came down again, and they died right there in the spot. Y'all can
Yeah, that's what I read. Acts 5.
hold on 1 second. Go ahead, Con.
Shalom, Elder. Shalom, Israel. You said Proverbs what?
Proverbs 35 and 6.
35 in Proverbs? There's
Wait.
35. It stops all the way to 31.
So like Kahanabi, what is that, 25? No, it's not 25.
What's that?
What was the Proverbs verse again? I definitely misheard that.
So chapter 30, verse 5 to 6.
30 verses 5 to 6.
30. Okay. Kind of the water. All right. Uh-oh. You get the missing Proverbs?
Yeah. It's online now.
That's what we're talking about, right? Not adding to it.
Yeah.
The water. It's there, I think in Chronicles versus Kings, the Solomon was 1,000 or something Proverbs. You say, oh, it's missing Proverbs you didn't know about.
Con. The water for that. All right. Yahweh Kanan.
You guys want to read Acts 5:36?
Acts 5:36.
Yeah. It says, for before these days rose up Theudas, boasting himself to be somebody, to whom a number of men, about 400, joined themselves, who were slain, and all, as many as obeyed him, were scattered and brought to naught.
Okay.
So he just trying to, make himself to be somebody, and people were following him and so on and so forth, and they perished because of it.
Right.
Trying to do their own thing.
Mm-hmm. It's a few times when somebody tries to get a name for themselves that it didn't go their way, right? Because their whole objective or their intention wasn't pure. It was to try to do just that, have the people, praise them or get some kind of fame or, residuals from it, whereas it wasn't righteous. So it never prospered, right? Same thing happened in Maccabees when you had the men who observed Judas and them going out there killing, defending Israel righteously. He said, we're going to go get us a name too. And they went out there and died. It was wiped out. And it tells you that they was really, those men that did that, they was never included in they were not a part of the righteous anyway. Right? So that judgment, that fate came upon them. So it's the same thing. Now, one would say, of course, the Most High would know the spirit that's on these two men, but they had to be made, they was used as an example for the rest of the people, right? So everybody else that's observing them, watching the sacrifices, and they see what they did, is like, man, the Most High didn't have, He ain't having any mercy on those guys. Imagine how it's going to be for us. So we have to make sure that we're on point too. For quiet.
It's like instead of taking fires, which was raising fires from the altar, they just went and get regular fire and put it in and throw incense on it. And they were gonna go somewhere.
Mm-hmm. So now verse 3, it says that Marshal Moses said unto Aharon, Aaron, this is it that Yahweh spake, saying, I will be sanctified in them that come nigh me, and before all the people I will be glorified. And Aaron held his peace, right? So now you have to look at it, because this is Aaron's sons that just got burnt, killed, died right there, right? So the Most High came back and told Moses, it said, listen, this is what I was talking about. When you come deal with me, you got to be on point. You got to be clean spiritually as well as physically. You can't come wishy-washy. You can't come doing your own thing, having your own objective. If you do, this is an example of it, right? So it says again, and Aaron held his peace. He didn't have nothing to say because he knew that his sons was wrong, but those was his sons, right? So it's like, man, I just lost my sons within a moment. At one point, it was a joyous occasion. And like that, based on their actions, for me, it turned into a solemn occasion, right? Which is kind of mixed because he still has this high position that's given to him by the Most High. He's still now the high priest. The sons that he has are being reared up to follow in his stance as far as for keeping that tradition on based on the lineage of their families. Two of them is now dead, right? Gun. You was gonna say something, Yakuna?
No, I said sons of the high priest, you know, that the Most High is dealing with, and they bigger too, you know, why not?
Right. This is, and what was interesting about this, because you know you're reading the law where it says if you have an unruly child that don't want to listen to his parents, you go and bring him before the gate to the elders, and then they're going to deal with him. And if he's still stubborn, they're going to stone him with stones that he die, right? So there's a difference. This is where you come now to understand when the Most High or Yahweh says you can't love father, mother, son, daughter more than me. If you do, you're not worthy of me, because then you're going to choose what things they see as good or bad. I mean, good or bad as far as for following in there or catering to their ways, right? Outside of the Most High's ways. So you see here that Moses had to come and console his brother and say, look, man, this is exactly what the Most High told us was going to happen. Those was his nephews too. But hey, the Most High is right here, right? Remember when you read in 1 Samuel's, when Samuel was being groomed up to be a priest, there was a priest before him. I forget his name, but he had sons as well. And the Most High was moving him out the way. And the Lord told Samuel that he was going to be next in line because the one who was rearing him up, he didn't deal with his sons the right way. He never chastised Eli. Yeah, he didn't chastise his sons, who was now supposed to be set up as a priest. They was out there doing all kind of stuff. And he said because he didn't deal with them, now he was going to have to die. He was going to have to suffer that fate, right? Which puts responsibility on his father, on the father. Not to say that the sin was going to be a blame. He had a responsibility. He didn't do it. Y'all can
as fathers too.
Yes.
And like in general, as fathers.
Exactly. Ton. So now let's go back, Leviticus 10:4 now. This is, and Moses called Mishael and Elsaphan, the sons of Uziel, the uncle of Aaron, and said unto them, come near, carry your brethren from before the sanctuary out of the camp, right? So he now called the sons of their uncle, which is their cousins, and said, listen, you have to take their bodies and go and take it without the camp, right? So now you're taking it, and the people are going to see him taking that thing and going out of the camp. Like, and it was symbolic to witness to say, look, man, he was once a part of us, But now they're dead and they taking them outside. Like get them far away from us, right? Don't let them remain within this congregation, right? Now it says, verse 5, so they went near and carried them in their coats out of the camp, as Moses had said, right? And Moses said unto Aaron and unto Eleazar and unto Ithamar, his sons, uncover not your heads, neither rend your clothes, lest ye die, and lest wrath come upon all the people. But let your brethren, the whole house of Israel, bewail the burning which the Lord hath kindled, right? So now it says, the Most High had Moses go and say unto Aaron and unto Eleazar, the sons and Ithamar of Aaron, and said, listen, y'all can't go and mourn the traditional way that Israel mourns, because you know when something bad happens, what do? We rend our clothes, we take out and go start wailing and crying and everything else. Y'all can't do that. Don't even think to go and cry. Let them wail and bewail and mourn over who I just killed, but you guys can't do it, right? So that's a tough thing, because now you're grooming the high priest and the priesthood, so they have to be really focused on the mission and not rear here and there, right? The Most High was setting up the priesthood, beginning with Aaron, moving forward. So it couldn't be where now Aaron and the sons had to go take time off to go and mourn and now delay everything that the Most High was establishing. So he said, nah, you can't, for right now, you can't do it. You can't mourn. You gotta keep going, right? Sometimes you see that in movies where in a movie, you know, some kind of conflict comes in and people come in shooting and somebody gets shot, right? Or somebody die. And they like, look, we gotta go. You can't stay here and crying. Like, what happened, but we gotta go. Our lives is in jeopardy, or we have a bigger task at hand. Later on, you can do that, but for right now, you can't. So the Most High was telling them, you can't take off your miters, you can't rend your clothes. You have to still continue with these offerings and these sacrifices as according to the priesthood is, right? So I'm gonna read that again. It says, and Moses said unto Aaron and unto Eleazar and unto Ithamar his sons, uncover not your heads, neither rend your clothes, lest ye die, and lest wrath come upon all the people. So everybody would be subject to some kind of a judgment if they went out of course, right? But let your brethren, the whole house of Israel, the rest of the congregation, bewail the burning to Nabad and Abihu, which the Lord hath kindled, right? So that's a kind of a touchy situation, and Aaron and Eleazar and Ithamar are dealing with at the time.
And the funny thing is, they took the body, the fire came.
And it didn't burn their clothes. Yeah, it didn't burn their clothes. It just burned them, but their clothes were still there. Like the carcass, everything is still there. So they had to go and take the remains in their clothes and take it out.
The fire came to kill them.
Yeah.
Specifically, not to burn them.
Yeah.
Kill them.
So what that shows you is the Most High, like how when you're reading the gospel and Yahushua is calming the waves when they was in the boat and they was questioning, who is this that has power to command the waves and things to kind of temper down? Who is this that has power over the fire to tell it what it can burn and not burn? Right? The Most High, right? The creator of the very element that we are bear witness to, right? Normally it would burn up the whole thing, but in this case, it just burned up their body and left the apparel and everything there, and it took it out. It's like a movie thing that you would see. Like somebody, they die and their body evaporate and their clothes just drop, right? It's like, you know, the burnt carcass of their bodies is still there. It's probably still vapors coming off of it, and the clothing and apparel is there, right?
And it's like the Most High punishing us, but still we're not consumed.
Yeah.
But we're still going through the affliction. We're still here just to show that the affliction is not to utterly destroy us. It's just to serve a purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now, reading on verse 7, it says, "And ye shall not go out from the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, lest ye die. For the anointing oil of the Lord is upon you." And they did according to the word of the Most High. So now, not only could they not mourn and take off their clothes, the Lord says, you can't leave because the anointing is on you. You have a specific job to do. You can't take time off and say, I'm about to go bounce and go do something else. No, you got to stay here, right? Lest ye die. That was upon them, right? You leave, you die. So make sure you make the right choice here, right? It was already given to Nadab and Abihu. If you offer this strange thing on the altar, you're going to die, right? Don't do it. They went and did it. They suffered the fate. Aaron, Ithamar, Eleazar, make sure you heed the commandment. Don't leave. Continue what we're doing, right? Because this is a holy thing that you're doing. You can't pause. You got to get your mind right.
And the funny thing is, they supposed to be taught in the midst of all adversity. Like Yahushua, because they doing the work that Yahushua was going to be the high priest.
Mm-hmm.
So they supposed to exemplify. So even if you see people dying in front of you, you're supposed to be tough and, understand what's going on. It's the Most High that's doing all the thing, and don't let it get to your head and get discouraged or get sorrowful and forget about all the work the Most High set for you.
Right.
And that's what Yahushua was doing.
Right. Yeah, you get weak and then you just let it go. Not to say that, because Kahan Nabiyah, he sent me the text of when the scripture says Yahushua wept, right? Not to say that he wasn't sorrowful for when people, those who are righteous especially, died.
Right.
These men was wicked, right? They didn't die. They didn't die in righteousness. Right. They died in wickedness. So for them to die in wickedness and to mourn the normal mourning that we would do for a righteous person was not going to be allowed here, right? Because then that would have given the impression that they had either Most High done something wrong or what they were doing was right, and then it looked bad. It would have gave mixed emotions. So it was like, nah, let them. You stay on a course, even though that's your sons and your nephews. Stay the course, right? So here he couldn't leave tabernacle of the congregation. He had a specific job to do, right? Verse 8. It says, "And Yahweh spake unto Aaron, saying, Do not drink wine nor strong drink, thou nor thy sons with thee, when you go into the tabernacle of the congregation, lest ye die. It should be a statute forever throughout your generations, and that ye may put difference between holy and unclean, and between unclean and clean," right? So here it is. Along with them doing this service, the Lord said that they couldn't drink or consume any wine or strong drink, right? Because it would probably impair their judgment on what they was doing, right? You can't drink that. Now you have to be able to stay holy, right? Usually, I remember back in the day when we was doing the Sabbath services, we used to do, when we did the wine, we used to drink and consume the wine, right? And now you're sitting there. If you was the first young man to get up there when we was doing the service, because you had the old man and the high priest and the priest that come up in the middle. The third was always three. The one in the middle, the first one, he get a big cup and he drink it during the sacrifice, during the offerings. So now you sitting there with you drink, and you couldn't leave anything in the cup. You got to drink the whole thing. So if you put a whole thing in the cup, you drinking that whole thing. So you consume a flash quick amount of alcohol or wine in a shorter part of time. Yeah, you sitting up there and you're like, yeah. And the wave breaths in your mind. You got to be clear-headed. You have to be soberly minded, right? That's why even when you read in the New Testament, as far as for bishops, is a bishop can't be given a wine or strong drink, meaning he can't be one who's always wrapped in consuming wine and strong drink. But what that did was it set the tone for the sanctuary. In the sanctuary, in the tabernacle of the congregation, you're not drinking wine and strong drink, right? That was forbidden, as we're reading right here, right? So during even for us, all the different camps that are round about, right? That should be something that should be kept, where we're not in the service or we're not doing the worship before the Most High, because this is like the makeshift sanctuary, the makeshift temple. This is not the temple. This is just a place where we come to worship, but we have that same mind state of what it would be like. So this is the rehearsal. So we shouldn't be consuming yayan, strong drink, when we're coming to worship or do the office of the Most High. Now, when you step down or away from the tabernacle, the sanctuary, the temple, and you go, away from that, that's different, right? But the priest coming here, we shouldn't do that, and that's why we don't have brothers, sitting down there drinking yayan or strong drink, because you know how Israel, especially how Israel it turned into a whole different thing when you're under the influence of different strong drinks of wine. Yahweh Kanan de Pequot.
Oh, but when a holiday falls on the Sabbath.
Say again?
Like a holiday would fall on the Sabbath, like a Friday evening.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that. We definitely don't want to be drinking too much wine or whatever.
Right, but see, that's why I said when we're doing the service, right? When we're doing the service, we're not drinking and consuming the wine. That's why when you read like in Nehemiah, when they went to the scriptures, like how they said Nehemiah and the priest, they was out in the court and they was teaching from sun up to sundown, right? Teaching the scriptures. Now they're not out there teaching the scriptures and jokers like, oh, pass me that thing, let me drink this. Like sometimes when we sitting up here on the podium, brothers will out of brotherhood, sometimes you can get parched after talking a lot. We'll go get some water or some juice just to wet your palate, but we're not getting yayan and vodka or some cognac to drink. No, because that's not allowable by the Most High. Once this is done, then you can go do that. So even on the feast day, right? On the feast day, when we go and we come and we do the prayers and we do everything else, that's the portion of the service where we're doing the teaching, we're doing the lesson, we're doing the prayers and the understanding. When that's done, then it's like a separate realm where now we can go back and feast, right? Now we can go have the festivities portion of it, which Israel would do back in their homes, back in different banquets and so in people's halls and whatever. That's cool, right? But doing the service, no, it's not what we would do. As we see right here, right? Is letting them know that they're the high priest, and then the priesthoods after them, that they will not go into the tabernacle of the congregation doing that. Right? Pequot.
In fact, it's contrary to outside of the Passover, which is once a year, and we do it symbolically, we drink the wine.
Right.
Like we see they do it in the Catholic Church. Every time they have service, they drink the wine in the service.
Mm-hmm.
Like every time they have the service, they drink the wine. The priest drink the wine in the midst of the service, which is contrary to the scripture.
Right.
Right. And even when we eat and drink, when we eat the offering, it's not in the service, it's outside of the service. Because remember, we have the temple, right? And after that, we have outside of the temple, that's where we have our feast. So we don't feast inside of the temple, and then they have the temple was to do the service of the Most High. And after that, outside of the temple, we go in feast mode and go eat.
Right.
Outside of the temple.
Right. So just to bring it to home, I'm going to read this in Ezekiel 44 and 21. This is a precept to link with the same thing that we just read in verse 9. Ezekiel 44 and 21, it says, neither shall any priest drink wine when they enter into the inner court. Right? So we're not supposed to consume and drink wine when we enter into the inner court. Right? So when we do, just to bring it to close as far as what the choir brought up about the Passover, right? That's normally we're at a banquet hall, right? We're not in the temple, right? Even though that's a place of worship, that we're not there as the priest doing the service. But to be cognizant of this, we always do this at the end of the service, right? It's not something that we're casually drinking throughout the service. It's at the end of the service that we do that. Right? At the end of the service, we'll say, okay, we're going to go and break this bread and drink this wine in solemnity for what Yahushua did with the brothers at the Passover dinner that they had. So again, this is the banquet of keeping the feast when we do it. But normally, when the priest can just go in and out of doing the service, they're never to consume or drink yayin or strong drink, right? Even though it says here wine, we just read in Leviticus 10 that it's wine or strong drink, having the same effects on you. So now let's go back to Leviticus 10:9 again. Do not drink wine nor strong drink, thou nor thy sons with thee, when you go into the tabernacle of the congregation, lest ye die. It shall be statute forever throughout your generations, and that ye may put a difference between holy and unholy, and between clean and unclean, right? So this again is one of the main things the Most High has done for us in the law, to be able to distinguish between what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, right? When we don't have the law, we eliminate what's acceptable and what is not acceptable, right? These are things now as we go throughout the commandments, throughout the statutes, where we can say, oh, this is unclean to the Most High, right? This is not unclean to the Most High, right? We are unclean at times, and the Most High has laws on what we're supposed to do when we become unclean, right? When we look at the pig of itself is not unclean. It's unclean when it dies, and then when you want to use it for what? Food. You cannot eat that. But the pig running around, a dog running around, a cat running around, those are animals that we're not supposed to eat. They are unclean to us to eat. But there's nothing wrong with having those animals as a part of your farm or a part of your household or your pet or whatever the case may be. We now have the law to be able to distinguish between when this becomes unclean and when this becomes holy, right? That's when we know the difference, right? So even when we do, let's say, Pakwa put up the Passover, the lamb itself, when we go and we sacrifice or we offer up the lamb, and we burn the lamb and we bring it to the Passover itself, what happens? That meat now becomes holy, right? That meat becomes holy. We just don't haphazardly give that meat to anybody, right? This person don't know about Yahushua. He don't deal with the Most High. He ain't dealing with the commandments. But now here we have a surplus of food, a surplus of lamb left over, right? We didn't take account of to how many people were showing up, and now we got a whole tray and a half left over of lamb, right? Normally what happens, we got the cleaner crew. When you go to the hotel, got the cleaner crew coming in. On a normal high holy day, on a normal occasion, we could say, brothers, y'all want something to eat? We about to throw this away. We ain't gonna just throw it. You can have it. Not on that day, not for the Passover. Most High says that can't not even be left until the morning. Burn it with fire, destroy it, get rid of it, because it's holy unto the Most High. So there's now a stipulation of how we even deal with that, right? And we now have to know this. So this is why the Lord put that in there, that we may put a difference between holy and unholy, between clean and unclean. Same thing we said earlier. When you come before the Most High, you got to know if you clean or unclean. How do you know if you clean or unclean? You go right back up in the precepts. Have you been around a woman? Have you been around a dead body? Have you had a chance at that night, right? Have you had an issue of blood that's been coming out? These things now we have to go back and observe and say, hey, did this happen? Because if it did, I'm unclean. I have to stay away. If it didn't, I prepare myself. Now I can go and present myself before the Most High on the Sabbath for quiet.
And some people might say, it's good to give to the poor, and we have a meat left over.
Right.
It would sound good to do it. It's a nice thing to do, but that's not what the Most High
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. In that case, and somebody who doesn't understand of how to put a difference between holy and profane, when they don't know and they see us doing that, he's like, man, these guys is wicked. Look how they throwing all that food away. Why would they do that? Why would they want to just give it to the poor? Because the Most High said that's not thing to do. Now, let's just say if one of us wanted to be righteous over much, And be like, come on, man, them brothers out there, they out there in the cold, they ain't got no food. Listen, the Most High, trust me, the Most High is going to be accepted of me giving them this food. We're feeding our brethren. We ain't giving it to the, we feeding our brothers with this, man. This is Yahushua. This is like the body of Yahushua. We giving them Yahushua. And you go and give them that meat, and you wind up all kind of crazy stuff start happening to that brother because he just violated the commandment. The Lord said, don't do that. And he said, don't do it for a reason, right? Let you know, holy, profane. Now, it became profane. He became profane. All of that happened in that one instance by that decision being made. Right? Now, in verse 11, it says, and that ye may teach the children of Israel all the statutes which the Lord hath spoken unto them by the hand of Moses. Right? So with those understandings of clean and unclean, we now teach that to the rest of the congregation so that they know and then pass that down to their generations. Same thing it says in Psalms 78. Psalm 78, verses 5 to 8. Psalm 78, verses 5 to 8. Which says, for he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers that they should make them known to their children, that the generation to come might know them, even the children which should be born, who should arise and declare them to their children, that they might set their hope in Yahweh and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments, and might not be as their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that set not their heart aright, whose spirit was not steadfast with Yahweh, right? Not on point, not straightforward with the Most High. That was Psalm 78, 5 to 8, to link with verse 11. So now reading on, it says, and Moses spake unto Aaron and unto Eleazar and unto Ithamar, his sons that were left. Take the meat offering that remaineth of the offerings of Yahweh made by fire, and eat it without leaven beside the altar, for it is most holy. Again, so this is what was instituted in the law when you read in Exodus, the 29th chapter, pertaining to which offerings or sacrifices were to be eaten by the priests. This is one of them. So now Moses is telling Aaron and his sons, they now need to go and eat this because it is most holy, and eat it without leaven. Right? Verse 13, and ye shall eat it in the holy place, because it is thy due and thy sons' due of the sacrifices of the Lord made by fire. For so I am commanded. Right? So this is Moses speaking to his brother and his nephews, that they now have to go and eat this within the place that they're offering these sacrifices, because that's their portion. When it says this is their due and their sons' due, that's the portion that the Most High is giving to them of the sacrifice or offerings that has been given by the people. Right? That's just how they are fulfilled or filled. Right? Verse 14. And some of this is a rehashing, right? It says, and the wave breast and the heave shoulder shall ye eat in a place, thou and thy sons and thy daughters with thee. For they be thy due and thy sons' due, which are given out of the sacrifices of peace offerings of the children of Israel. Again, you read that in Exodus 29th chapter, all right? Starting from 1 all the way down, and goes through all of the different instances in the law pertaining to which offerings could be eaten and not eaten, where it could be eaten, how it's supposed to be eaten, so forth and so on. So here it's not only just says him and his sons, but it says his sons and the daughters with thee. So this was taken back, make sure around with the whole family, this was supposed to be eaten of the peace offerings, right? So when we look at the order or how Israel was structured, right, the priests didn't have their own land. right? They didn't have the same offices or occupations as the rest of Israel. The Israel was blessed with the crops, blessed with their cattle, right? Blessed with their gold or different types of monies that they were given. And that was supposed to be offered up as an offering or a sacrifice to the priests. And then out of that, that was what the Most High in the law instituted, what was supposed to be used by the priests and what was supposed to be offered up to the Most High. Yahweh Kanan.
It says in a clean place.
Say again?
It says in a clean place.
Right. Right. So somewhere where that's, to me, when you look at it, it has to be a place where everything is kept holy. Like, you're not going to go to a, like, you know how we go to a restaurant? And in a restaurant, guess what you have? You got unclean people in there, right? You got all kind of things going on that you don't know of, right? But certain things now have to be separate. That's why when we keep the Passover or we keep certain high holy days, we want to be segregated from everyone else. We want to make sure that when we in there, in this room, when we in this is just only us in there, right? Sometimes because we're renting from someone else and this is their place of business, they may come through, right? They walk in and we sitting there like, yo, man, what the heck is this guy doing? Right? We paid for the room. Like, he just can't come through here like this. Because in our minds, he's unclean. Right? This person is not an Israelite, and we don't know what he's been dealing with. So when it talks about a clean place, we have to take into account all of these things. That we don't want to have people or an environment where it can be all kind of uncleanness that's going on. So that's what it's talking about. Because again, this is the offerings of the Most High. And as we read in the last precept in verse 12, it is most holy. It is not holy, it is most holy. So it has to be treated with all holiness. All right. Verse 15. The heave shoulder and the wave breast shall they bring with the offerings made by fire of the fat to wave it for a wave offering before the Lord. And it shall be thine and thy sons with thee by a statute forever, as Yahweh hath commanded. So now as it's going through, we're reading about the offerings. Now we're getting into them actually taking the portions that's for them that they can go and consume. Now, verse 16, it says, and Moses diligently sought the goat of the sin offering, and behold, it was burnt. And he was angry with Eleazar and Ithamar, the sons of Aaron, which were left alive, saying, wherefore have you not eaten the sin offering in the holy place, seeing it is most holy? And Yahweh hath given it you to bear the iniquity of the congregation, to make an atonement for them before the Lord. So now Moses understood the statute that the Lord said of what was supposed to be burnt holy and what was supposed to be burnt and then consumed by the priest. So now he's going around looking, he's like, where is this offering at? Where's this goat offering? Why haven't y'all consumed it? Because this is what's supposed to happen, right? So now he's getting and chastising his nephews, Ithamar and Eleazar, because they haven't done it. So now we're going to see the answer. Verse 18, behold, the blood of it was not brought in within the holy place. You should indeed have eaten it in the holy place as I commanded. So now Moses, remember, he's the stand-in. He's the one that's going and speaking and communing with the Most High. And then now he's going and speaking to his brother and his nephews. So now he's getting the instruction, and now he's coming to make sure that this is being played out, that it's being carried out. But it hasn't. This portion, when they were supposed to consume it, has not been done. So now he's questioning them, and he's making sure, listen, you know, when we did the offering, this was done this way, this was done that way. You guys know this. Why you didn't eat it, right? Now let's see who it falls upon. Verse 19. And Aaron said unto Moses, behold, this day have they offered their sin offering and their burnt offering before Yahweh, and such things have befallen me. And if I had eaten the sin offering today, should it have been accepted in the sight of the Lord? Right? So now Aaron is saying, you're right. This is what they did. But Moses, remember, my other two sons just died. Do you think if I would have gone in there, he would have gone in there in his mind, I would have gone in there with the wrong heart. I wouldn't have been in the right place. So do you think the Most High would have accepted that if I'd have went in there with what was on my mind? I couldn't leave, right? I couldn't go mourn for my sons. I still got to stay the course. So now here it is for me to sit there and eat the most holy thing. I couldn't do it. I don't think the Most High was going to accept me doing it. Because remember, we have a problem, or we had a problem with the Most High, that when we offered our offerings and things, our heart had to be right. Our mind had to be right. You just can't be here, but you got your mind on other things. It's like you here, but you're like, man, I really wanted to go to that party. I know all my friends and anything's gonna be there, but I don't know about this new moon thing, man. It's just like a regular day to me. I could have been having a good time. I've seen other brothers have a good time. So your mind ain't there, but you physically here, right? Do you think the Most High is really accepting of someone who's not in the right spirit or in the right mind when they go and do their offerings or they present themselves to the Most High? So Aaron, and his response to his brother, is saying, look, a lot has just happened to me today. That's what he said. This is what things have befallen me. I just lost my 2 sons to wickedness. He's now still dealing with that. So because of it, he's like, he couldn't go, he didn't go through with that, right? Now, remember, Moses is the one who's now dealing with, he's intervening between him and the priests. Remember, Moses is one who's one of the meekest men on earth. However, even in that, he's still now chastising them. Like, yo, what's going on? You see what happened to your other brothers, but now there's another side to it that he's listening to his brother to find out why they didn't do it. And he's like, because he was pretty much on a heavy heart. He just didn't see in his mind the benefit in doing it. But
he was there to give him direction.
Right.
And he didn't go and try to take on their position. He let them do what they got to do because they were chosen by the Most High, and he just gave them direction. At the same time, the Most High gave him the spirit of understanding to understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Not to get on them, like be rigid on them, but to also understand, the whole situation.
Right. So they powered through and continuing on with the offerings and the sacrifices that they were supposed to do, but this aspect they didn't do. And when Moses went to the sons, his nephews, his brother answered and said, this is what it is. A lot has befallen me. Not just him, because those was their brothers, right? So following in the example of their father, they didn't do it. So then the next verse says, and when Moses heard that, he was content, meaning he understood. He was like, all right, I get it. I understand. I sympathize with what you're going through, right? Now, someone can contend and say, well, did that make it right that they didn't do it because of that? The scriptures don't go into detail behind what the Most High's consequences of judgment was for them. It just lets you know that Moses understood why they didn't do it. Sometimes, I usually like to, when I'm debating or I'm conversing with somebody, I want to understand you. I want to understand why you do what you do. So just for my own knowledge of experience. But just because I understand what you did don't make it right, right? It's like somebody who's out there selling drugs. And he's like, yo, I got fired from my job. I went and applied for 4 jobs and no one hired me. I got a newborn baby. I got bills to pay. Man, this is what it is, right? I understand where he's coming from. I understand his rationale for what he chose to do. Does that make it right? Does that make it right that now he chose an occupation where he's now going to go and poison the rest of his people? No, right? He just used the wrong outlet to go do it. He could have went and did something else. He could have consulted. He could have been a little bit more patient with the Most High, but he chose to do that. I understand why you did it, but it don't make it right. So we don't get into all the time when we read the scriptures, and a lot of times people use, because it doesn't give you every time an explicit judgment or an explicit thing behind what some of Israel do in the scriptures. So then they allude to, well, then it must have been okay, right? That's like when Judah went and found the prostitute, which was his son's wife, right? He didn't know it was his son's wife, but he went and had a prostitute, right? Now that should have been sin on its own. But we read as far as for now how, you know, they went through the whole back and forth about the lying of, you know, who was this, and then she came out and revealed it. But then others will look at him like, so wait, the scriptures was pinpointing about that circumstance, but it didn't get on any judgment about him going and seeking a prostitute. See, you can't get on me about seeking a prostitute. I get it. The scripture talk about there should be no whore amongst Israel, but he went and found a prostitute. Maybe I just go find a heathen one, right? Because a mind will work that way because it's not explicit. Some things are implied. Some things are not explicit, they're just implied, and it takes a spiritual person to understand that. So we don't hone in on, well, what did the Most High do with all of this? Did he it don't say that he chastised or jacked up Ithamar and Eleazar and Aaron for doing it. It just says that it happened, Moses understood, and that was that. Everything ain't always given or known. We have to take from different examples and different stories that's in the scriptures about what happened to the past and link them together and make a spiritual, wise understanding or assessment of the right things to do.
So we can link that with Jeremiah 6 and verse 20.
Jeremiah 6 and verse 20.
I think on Aaron's part, it was good decision, like you were saying, but he was not in the right mind. That doesn't make it right.
Right.
But yet, if he went and do it, that would pretty much put him in the category of, you know, you shall worship the Most High with all your mind, with all your soul. But his mind wasn't all there.
Right.
So for him to go and do it, that would violate that law.
Right. And before you read that, and this is to say, because the verse says Moses was content, right? Now, that don't mean that Moses was without flaw himself, right? We know that even the Most High got on Moses because he didn't sanctify the people, sanctify him amongst the people, right? Meaning to fully get them in tune with his will and his judgment. So he said, you know what? You can't step foot into the land because he himself sometimes wasn't right. Now, and I say that to say not to discredit Moses or not to diminish Moses's character or whatever. It's just that we got to balance things out and understand that the Most High and Moses is two different entities. The same way Yahushua and the rest of the other prophets that came before him, Elijah, was two different entities, right? Elijah, we saw, was taken up by the Most High, right? We don't read a lot of instances at all, if any, of Elijah sinning on a grand scale or any scale. But the Most High told you that, nah, yeah, Elijah had his time, Moses had his time, but Yahushua is the one. There was a distinguishing factor between him over them. So you can't allude and think that these men were without sin or without irrational judgment at times, right? So I just want it to be known when we read, you know, Aaron's decision for what he was doing, and the Most High not giving a hard, explicit consequence or judgment like we did with Abihu and Nadab. Don't think that it was just, or assume that it was always just okay. Pequot, Jeremiah 6 and 20.
And it says, actually, let me read 19 and 20.
19?
19 and 20. That would bring more understanding.
So Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 19 and 20.
Oh,
Chapter 6, verse 19 and 20.
And it says, hear, O earth, behold, I will bring evil upon this people, even the fruit of their thoughts, because they have not hearkened unto my words, nor to my law, but rejected it. To what purpose cometh there to me incense from Sheba, and the sweet cane from a far country? Your burnt offerings are not acceptable, nor your sacrifices sweet unto me. So they may bring, incense, imported incense from, far countries, from Italy, nice offering, but the mind is not in the right place because they're not doing according to the law. Then it's the Most High would not accept it.
Right.
So to put it in the sense of Aaron right there, his mind was not in the right place. If he went and do it, it wouldn't be make much of a difference even if he went and do it. Because his mind is not in the right. He doesn't want to do it. I mean, at that point right now, he's sorrowful, and his mind he's trying to bottle what he's going through. His two sons just passed away, but his mind is not fully focused on it.
All right. You can write down 1 Corinthians 10. 1 Corinthians 10 and 13. Where it says, "There have no temptation taking you, but such as is common to man, and Yahweh is faithful, and he will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape that ye may be able to bear it." Right. So now the reason why I bring this verse out, right, because a lot of times the weight that may be on one shoulder may seem more than they can bear or more than they can handle or deal with at a time. But the Most High is letting Paul through the Spirit is letting us know that the Most High is not going to give you more than what you're capable of enduring or more than what you're capable of bearing, right? So the weight or what was instituted to Aaron and them at the time wasn't more than he was capable of enduring or dealing with. We become our own worst enemies when it comes to overcoming the challenge or overcoming the burden or overcoming the temptation with doubt, right? You start doubting if you can do it, right? You start questioning, why me? Why not him? Right? I'm looking at him or her and, they ain't not going through none of these things, but what's upon you is what the Most High has put upon you for your journey, and you're strong enough to be able to handle it or deal with it. What's upon that person, if it's the same thing, that person may not be able to handle what you're going through because it's not meant for them to go through it. It's meant for you to go through it, right? So the weight that was put upon him within that day to be able to handle that, he could have handled it, right? It's just that you need to have the faith and have the mind state to be able to trust the Most High that you can bear or overcome and deal with certain things, right? Sometimes your mind, depending on the circumstance, that's why I alluded to when you watch in cinema, right? And usually when you watch in cinema or movies or TV, that becomes your teacher, right? It's like, hey, you're watching a movie and they're in a shootout and this guy, this is his brother, and boom, he gets shot. And you're like, oh no, he got shot. The fight didn't stop. They still shooting, right? They still shooting. So he don't say, hold on, let me mourn for my brother over here. Oh my gosh, give me a week or give me a couple days. Let me mourn. No, right? You keep going. You're like, yo, we're in a fight. I gotta save myself, or I gotta deal with this, and then later on I can go and mourn or deal with the circumstances, time permitting. So in that case, we with the adrenaline and the spirit deal with it. Could have dealt with it. So I don't want to give them the wrong impression that the Most High put a burden upon Aaron and Ithamar and Eleazar that was just too much that they couldn't deal with it. Like they couldn't go forward and no, they could have, right? It was just the fact of them being weak, right? Them not handling the certain, and now here it is. Fast forward, we're talking about how to overcome those same circumstances if that happened to us. Now we're reflecting on it. Now we can sit and dissect it and put it in perspective and then align that with the other examples or other events that happened after that or before that, right? So that it can make us become more perfect with the Lord.
It's just like Proverbs 23:7, as we've been thinking, sometimes we think ourselves out of not to be able to overcome something.
Yeah.
And once you start saying that, you already done defeated. You don't need somebody to tell you. You already tell yourself that,
Yeah. Look at Abraham, right? Most High said he was accounted a friend because of his faith. Most High had been told to Abraham that he had to go and sacrifice or offer up his son. Abraham wasn't like, what? Hold on. Man, I think Most High he went. and carried it out and was about to go forward with it, because people look at the wrong thing. They're like, oh man, is that the Most High was going to have him kill his son? It was not about him having him kill his son. It was about a testimony of his trust and his faith in the Most High, right? How far will you go to stand by the Most High, even if it requires you making a decision over family members? That's why Yahushua said you can't love your mother, father, son, or brother more than me. If he was like, nah, I can't do that, that meant he loved his son more than the Most High. How did he get a son if not the Most High didn't give it to him? That's why you read these stories of these men having wives, and what happened? They was barren. Why was they barren? Because the Most High wouldn't allow them to have a son. So when you look at the things that you have, they're there because of the Most High. So you can't look at and treat and view these things as it's yours and not the Most High's, right? Those two brothers, those two sons that Aaron lost, they was the Most High before they was Aaron's, right? They was the Most High before they was Aaron's. So if anything, the Most High would have more of a stance to say, hey, forget them right now. You got to handle this. Those are yours, Most High. Okay, you, all right. Matter of fact, Aaron, you brothers don't do this lest you die, right? That's why I said they still in, they're not there in the fight, but they still in the midst of what's going on. Leave that alone for right now. Let me make sure this is okay, lest I get shot or lest I get fire put upon me. Same case. So that's a testimony for us to endure over the circumstance. Another example, the woman in Second Maccabees whose sons was murdered because they wouldn't eat swine's flesh, right? They were being murdered in succession. The mother wasn't like, hold on, he just killed my one son. Oh no, stop. Don't do it again. No, eat. No. She exhorted her sons to continue on and fight the good fight. Don't give in to him. If you die, you die. Right? That's a strong, it says she had like a manly type spirit in her when you read the story. That's that mentality that the Lord was looking for us when we have to continue on and do what it is necessary for us to do, to keep the mission, to obey the commandment, to defend the people, whatever it may be in the circumstance. That's the mind state. Y'all can.
Yeah, I think in another religion, I'm not sure too much. They said that if there's nothing else to eat, they would eat swine.
Islam.
Islam.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't do that.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And we talked about this before. So, they always come in. So what would you guys do if there's nothing? There's always pork there. What you going to do? You just going to die? We just going to die. But we don't have that. We don't have that belief that it's going to be that way. My faith is that the Most High is going to provide for me, right? If I'm doing what I need to do, of what's required of me or anybody, Most High is going to provide. That's where my faith is, right? And that's where it is. I'll die in righteousness before I die in wickedness, like what these other brothers did. That's to be the intent, the mind state. All right, so let's go back to Leviticus 10. Yep. So that was the last verse. It's verse 20. And when Moses heard that, he was content. All right, so that concludes today's Sabbath service lesson for those who dialed in, logged on. Within the past half an hour, I know you're like, man, the service over? Yeah, to these two, today's Sabbath service, the chapters were yeah, this is about to be the first break. No, this is we didn't take a break. We powered right through because the chapters was short, and I was looking at the snow. I didn't know when the snow was going to stop, but yeah, we powered right through. So this concludes today's Sabbath service lesson. Most High's will, everybody was able to take away the understanding that came from it. And so it's good to tell you that wisdom is the principal thing, but with all that getting, get understanding. So we always want to at least walk away with something that's going to build us more than what it was we had before. All right. Next week, we'll be in the New Testament, Matthew chapters 8 and 9. Again, we'll be in Matthew chapters 8 and 9 for the next Sabbath service lesson next week. Again, for the brothers and sisters, be your brother's keeper, especially for those that's in Israel, and even those, when I mean in Israel, that's in the truth, and even those who are not in this truth that's of Israel, as far as for checking on them. You know, we in some mean season weather. Make sure we just reach out to your neighbors or family members or friends that you know of. Make sure everybody's okay, especially those who are elderly. Make sure they have adequate food, adequate heat. You know, at one point in time, one of my neighbors was, it was a couple years ago, they ain't had no heat. It was like, why y'all ain't say nothing? Like, but then again, I looked at it, as I said, I could have checked on them even a bit more frequently to find out everything was going on with them. But, you just want to make sure that everybody is sustainable in this harsh weather, because it's supposed to get colder than what it is right now. I think tomorrow is supposed to go down 2 more degrees and another degrees. The highs is 19, the lows is 9, and that's without the wind chill factor. So, just be brotherly and hospitable to those that's in need. And with that, we're going to set up the closing prayers. I'm going to say Shah Shabbat, Yasha Allah, those that logged in, dialed in. Again, have a Tawab remaining Sabbath. Stay warm, stay strong, stay blessed. Shalom. Stay tuned. Mighty flies. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Par Yahagabin, Tuara Aman, La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Ath, Yasha Allah. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. I model upon you, Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Notice that was a different sound for the normal sound that I do when we try to do it again. It tells you in Corinthians, there's somebody alarm a strange sound, we're gonna know what it is, right? Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Baba Kushai, Shemai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yum Yun, Aitha, Shalak, Mayaka Allah, Waha Alahayan, Tazwadakin, La, Shema Isle, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Waha Kazayak, Bunya, Yasha Allah, Washalat, Lanawa, Rabium, Kakama, Rabium, Da'ai, Rabium, Bayana, Rabium, Sabalanwa, Rabium, Amawan, Rabium, Aqua, Rabium, Ahabium, Rabium, Hakana, Rakhanaya, Wasalat, Kal, Kata Ayamnawa, Laha'akin, Wayasha'ala, Thumb Yai, Wa'iwalam, Bahasham, Yahawashai, Thawada, Aman. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahawashi, please listen to us now, right now. Send Michael and the righteous powers to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins for the brothers and sisters and Israel, always and forever. In the name of Yahawashi, thank you, so be it. Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Barak Nawa, Wayasha'ala, Wabathya Saparim, Shema, Yasharallah, Yahweh, Allah Haynawa, Yahweh, Echad. All right, English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahawashi, bless us and Israel and the house of books, or the different schools. Deuteronomy 6:4, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one Lord. All right, again, we'll say Ashar Shabbat, happy Sabbath. In Israel, rise, rise, rise. Kum Yasha'ala. All right, Shalom.
Shalom.